But I think what we can do is call November 13th, 2018 City Council meeting to order. All council members present. Engineer Ryan, Attorney Riggs, Administrator Balsing, busy back there with the AV. So we'll move on to the first item here, citizen comments. And I don't see any just plain citizens, but I see citizens that could comment if they would. Mark, do you have any?
I do not have any additions, no.
With no changes or additions to the agenda, then entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting passed. Motion passes, rather. Consent agenda. Is there anything that should be removed from consent agenda, or do we have a motion to accept that?
Motion to accept it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And that passes. No presentations on the agenda, so we can move on to engineering then. Joe, item 8, Centennial Drive paving update.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Since the last time we talked, nothing had started on construction as of our last meeting, and so we wanted to give you an update of where things were at. As you recall, we did get bids, or quotes rather, for this project back in August, after the August 1st date increased the threshold for which we could get quotes for projects. Before it had been $100,000 was the threshold at which you had to go out for competitive bids. The threshold increased in August. We were able to get quotes then. The low quote we received out of the two was from Rochester Sand and Gravel in the amount of $120,954. And the council did award the contract to Rochester Sand and Gravel for that amount at their meeting in August. In September 12th, we had a pre-construction meeting on site with Rochester Sand and Gravel. Foldcraft also had a representative there at the meeting, and they essentially walked the project site, discussed the improvements, made some minor adjustments based on input from the contractor and from Foldcraft. And in your packet, along with the memo, you'll see the minutes from that meeting, along with a plan that was marked up with the notes based on that meeting. Then the contractor came back and began work on October 18th. I know there was some discussion at the last meeting because of the rains and the weather and whether or not the project was still feasible for this fall. And the contractor had said that if he couldn't get here, he would honor his price for the spring. But as it turned out, he did have a window in his schedule. We went out and inspected the site with Public Works, and everything looked good. The soils were good. The road was hard, so they could make the completion in accordance with the original schedule they had given us, which was to be complete by early November, so we allowed them to go ahead and do that work. They got the bulk of the work done in late October. Between the 24th and 30th of October, the final street surfaces were put down, including the concrete valley gutter that's at the far west end of the project, and then both lifts of the bituminous pavement, which total 5 inches of thickness on the road. So at this time, the road is paved, all the hard surfacing is down, the concrete is all down. They're in the process. They started today with the shouldering work. That they'll be finishing that up tomorrow. They've got a couple of loads of topsoil to bring in yet and do some dressing up of some of the slopes. You'll notice in some of the spots where they need to create a little bit of sloping to transition in from the new road elevation down to the boulevard elevations. And so they'll be working on that work over the next few days. They told us their intent is to have the work all completed by the end of this week. So everything is looking good, coming out well. And right now, based on what they've done to date and the work they have left to do, we're projecting they'll come in right around the contract amount of construction. And we anticipate we'll have a pay request for you at your next meeting in December. That'll have everything to date, but based on our projections, they should be right about at the contract amount.
Wonderful. Good to see that black, and know we don't have to worry about washouts in the spring and all that nice gravel ending up on our new grass surface.
And they did, just as of today, they contacted us to confirm that they'll be back on site tomorrow, resuming that work, and they intend to get it done yet this week.
Good.
I do have one question as to why they do that. Down on it'd be on the west or south end as you make the turn, the mobile home trailer courts up here. What is that concrete, why did they put the concrete down? Is that a mandatory type?
No, we
deal, or
recommended to install that because there's a swale that's coming up from the mobile home, the
Yeah.
manufactured home community, and it's a pretty concentrated flow. And we went out there and we looked at the site this spring with Public Works to lay out the scope of the work. There's a pretty good washout that happens
Yeah.
from where
Yeah.
that water hits that roadway. And we were concerned that if we just built the road and had it running down the gutter of the road without any concrete surface to carry that it would just constantly be undermining the edge of that blacktop, and that even if we built the road well, it would just be a constant maintenance struggle with the edge of that blacktop and that water. We know that, just like on one of our typical street reconstruction projects where we put in a curb and gutter
Yeah.
to carry a concentrated flow, because that concrete's much more durable than designed to handle that water flow. That's why we put that concrete gutter to get it to direct it out of that intersection down to where the catch basins can pick it up, and to get it across to where it can pick up the concentrated flow coming out of the manufactured home community.
Okay, I was just wondering why it was
Yep.
concrete during that particular section,
Yeah.
where I felt that it would be more important along the slope of Centennial by the fire hall itself coming down, curbing that instead of blacktop onto the grass.
No, this is specifically to carry that concentrated flow. There should be no concentrated flow off the edge of the road onto the grass surface. It would just be a sheet
Well,
flow.
not now, since it was resloped.
Right.
That area up there has been historically a washout every year.
Up by the manufactured home.
Yeah,
Okay.
right in that
Yep.
area. So, item B, under engineering, Second Street sanitary sewer improvements.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, Council, is a memo that we prepared on this project. As you recall, you authorized preliminary engineering on this project to do investigation and get a handle on exactly what's going on there and to scope out what the final proposed improvements should be. So since that authorization, we've worked with the Roto-Rooter to get the televising done. We reviewed the televising and come up with the recommended improvements and an associated cost estimate. And we put some of that information together in this letter with the attachments for your review here tonight. In essence, what we've got, if you recall, is through the testing and data that's been collected, we've kind of focused in on this block as being a hot spot for the higher mercury concentrations in the city. And so we want to try and undertake a project to try and address that mercury and reduce the concentration. And in particular, there's the main line itself, but then there's also services that serve. One is an active dental office and one is a historic dental office. And we think that in past practices, the materials used in dental work had high concentrations of
I
mercury.
had a lot of those mercury fillings.
Yep. And so even though the current dentist doesn't use this type of material anymore, there are likely maybe historical deposits in their service line and in the main line from those years of use. So we did investigate the line, and what we found was the line's about 565 feet long from the intersection at Forest Street to the intersection at Red Wing Street. There's no manholes in between, so you just go from block to block. And when they tried to televise all the way up from Forest Street to Red Wing, they couldn't make it all the way because it was too far for their equipment to reach. And then there was a protruding tap that prevented them from getting all the way up. So, but they got about 515 feet with their televising, and they could physically see when they opened the manhole at Red Wing, they could see the light, so they know the line connected through, but they just couldn't televise that last 50 feet. What they found was the pipe overall is in good structural condition. There are a few offset joints where the pipes come together and the pipes have settled relative to one another, but usually less than an inch in separation. There are a couple of spots where there's sags, but the sags are probably less than a quarter of the pipe diameter, which is 8 inches, so there's sags that are only an inch or less than 2 inches in depth. So what we found is it's a good candidate for introducing a cured-in-place polymer liner. So you don't need to dig up the street to replace the pipe. We can slip a liner, and it's a soft fabric liner that's chemically impregnated, and then they put it in the line and they pressurize it and heat it with steam, and the line bonds to it, the existing pipe, and then becomes rigid, and then you've got essentially a plastic pipe liner inside your existing old clay pipe. So this line is a good candidate for that. A couple of things we need to consider is the service connections. When we went through and televised the line, they found 43 service connections to the line along this block. Out of that 43, 19 were connected and in use, 24 were not. But when you look at the video, you can see at a number of those service connections that are not in use, you can see there's a factory connection there, but there's just a cap on it, right? So it's just it was provided for a future connection, but just was never connected to. But you can see there's evidence that water has been leaking in through those caps. You can see streaking on the inside of the pipes, an indication that water is running in and staining the inside of the pipe. Some of them you could literally see running in the video, so you know that they're running as it's going on. Of the 19 that are active, we did find, we wanted to focus in on those 2 that serve the former dental office and the current dental office. They were able to televise up those lines, and they did identify that each one of those serves at least 2 properties. So as you're going up the line from the sewer main towards the building, you're in that service line heading towards the building, you'll see another pipe branch off and go to the building next door. So in the case of Schweik's Restaurant, that pipe goes from the main line towards Schweik's, and then there's a branch off that goes to the dental office next door. Same with the pipe that goes towards the Muni. On the south side of the road, there's a second pipe that branches off and goes into what we believe is the Napa store. So we do have those combined service connections in there. The manhole at Forest Street is in okay condition, not the best condition. It's an old brick manhole. It's probably got some leaks in it. It probably will need some rehabilitation at some point, but we don't think it's worth doing anything with that manhole as part of this project, because there's 3 other pipes that come into that manhole at Forest Street. There's this one that comes in off of, would be the east side down 2nd Street, but there's also one coming in from the west. There's one coming in from the north and south. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to replace the manhole now, and then if we do a project in the future that affects the other lines, and we'd have to redo that manhole again. It makes more sense that we wait and do that manhole in the future if and when those other lines a project gets done with those. But on the other end of the road, up at Red Wing, manhole up there is an old manhole, and it's a configuration that I've never personally seen before. Public Works Director has crawled inside that manhole. It's a very unusual structure. We don't know what the historical purpose of it was, but when we're looking at it now, it's not in the best condition, and there's a significant amount of sediment in the bottom of it, which makes me wonder what the bottom of it actually is like, and is it have a way for material to being transported into that structure. So our recommendation is that we would replace that structure with a new precast watertight structure up at the high end of the line there at Red Wing Avenue, and simply remove and dispose of the old one. Then between those lines, we got 565 feet. The typical standard is 400-foot maximum for manhole spacings, and that's primarily for maintenance purposes. As we mentioned, they tried to jet and clean this line. They couldn't get all the way from one manhole to the other because it just gets to be too far. So we would recommend that we drop a manhole somewhere in between those 2 to try and break up that 565-foot spacing into 2 manageable lengths of pipe. Now, when we look at those combined services, where there's the most likely potential for historic mercury deposits, there's nothing we can really do with those lines in place. They're too small to line. And the one that's coming to the Muni has the second pipe that's into it was not a factory connection. It was a later tap connection, so it sticks into the line and blocks half of the pipe. So what we're recommending for those is that we physically would have to dig up those services and replace them with new service pipes. And that would allow us to get that old historic service pipe out of the ground and replaced with a new plastic pipe. While we're doing that, we could put in 2 service pipes so that we could separate those interconnected pipes and give each property its own separate service. We can do those side by side, so we can do it in one trench and consolidate the excavation and minimize it. And in fact, for the one that goes to the Schweitz building, we could put the manhole right in that same location, so we could dig one hole and put the manhole in, the two services, and extend them out and connect them back up right outside the building walls. So that would be the proposal for the services. Similar on the south side, we'd run 2 new plastic lines out to the Muni and to the Napa store and connect them in with those individual lines. And then when we get those old historic lines out of the ground, we can take those in and have them tested to see if there is any mercury deposits that's trapped in those pipes. If there are, then we can go back and talk to those property owners and say, you know, we removed these old pipes that run to the ground, we found these certain materials in the pipes, we suggest that you replace the rest of the pipe that's inside your building, or line, you know, do something with that rest of that service that's physically within the walls of your building, because we as the city, that's not our line, and we can't go in and do that, so we'd have to try and convince the property owner to make those corrections. So in summary, the proposed improvements would be to do a slip line of the main pipe from Forest Street to Red Wing. We'd replace the manhole at Red Wing, and we'd put another manhole in between, and then we'd replace those 2 existing combined services with 4 new individual services, 2 on the north side, 2 on the south side. We got a cost estimate that we worked up and put in the memo to you. We're estimating the total construction to be about $165,000. By the time we get a MnDOT permit, and then we do the engineering, and we have the other indirect costs that are associated with project development, we anticipate the total project cost will be about $227,000. One thing we specifically want to talk to you about was the funding of the project. You do have an existing assessment policy, and your assessment policy does allow you to assess certain aspects of public improvements. One of the things that it allows you to assess is the cost of sanitary sewer services. So we could, if the city wanted to, pursue assessing the cost of the individual service lines that are going to go out to these 4 properties that we're going to put in. When we look at doing that, though, 2 of the properties are owned by the city, so you'd be assessing yourself for those 2. So there's really only 2 properties that you would be able to assess and collect revenue from. When we look at the cost of those 2 individual services and what you could theoretically collect from the service installations versus the cost of what it would take to go through the Chapter 429 process for assessments, we estimate that it's best it would be a break even. In other words, you'd spend as much in the extra engineering cost and the extra staff cost going through the 429 process to do the formal feasibility report, the public hearing, the notices, the assessment hearing, all of that, it really would be cost neutral at best for the city. So we need to get direction from you on how you'd like to proceed, but I think the recommendation from staff is that there's really nothing to be gained by going through the 429 process and assessing these individual services. So it's in the best interest of the city that we would not use the Chapter 429 process for this project.
Yeah, and I think when the city engineer, Brian, says that it's a wash, I believe that it would be more expensive to go through the 429 process, and it would add, especially on the engineering end, you know, the required study and you know, resolutions that have to be passed. I think that it would add more cost. So the kind of the downside is we normally have property owners pay for their services when they're replaced. I guess the way I would look at this, I would classify this as a maintenance kind of thing. You know, where you, like when you go in and you have a broken water main or sewer main, and you have to go in and say that you had some damaged services, all that stuff would be replaced under maintenance. And I think this is a similar situation, but I think to go through and assess 2 of these, it doesn't make sense to do that, so.
I can also see a possibility of the one property owner who, yes, the line is connected to that building, but the mercury would not have originated in that building. I could see them objecting and running up some legal costs, even if we could, in the end, collect. And maybe after spending more money for litigation, we still did not get anything. And actually, as a matter of fairness, is it really the responsibility of that property owner who wasn't here when this work was done? The previous owner allowed the dentist office, not knowing the hazard that was being faced down the road to connect there. I don't think it makes sense to even consider going down that route.
I think I'd go after, not go after, but make a suggestion for that particular dentist office, you know, on that part of it. The manhole's open, new line is being tapped in, maybe at that time they could have that line, their private line, you know, the plastic liner put in. I think that would actually probably be cost-wise for them.
Well,
Better deal than doing it themselves.
Complication with that is that once you get within the building itself, you cross from being, out in the roadway, we can have a sewer and water contract to work. But once you get within the actual building, you have to be a licensed plumber to do that work.
Okay.
And a lot of times, the contractors we get for projects like this don't also carry the plumbing license that allow them to do the internal work, so it's
It certainly makes sense for them to do that work at the same time,
yes.
but they'd have to do it on their own.
Yes, they would have to, yeah, and the contractor that we get through the bidding process may or may not be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But they certainly could be encouraged that, hey,
yeah,
now we've got the ball rolling.
yeah, it's all open, do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Continue
Once
on,
again,
and, yeah.
the people that are running that office now are not the ones that used the mercury there in the first place.
Right.
That dentist
Yep.
is long gone.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know,
Well, that was in its state, that's what was
Yeah,
done,
that was-
so.
As I said before, I had mercury fillings put in both of those offices.
And I don't know if there's a voluntary, we could talk to them and see if they would.
Yeah, I
Work with us.
would approach them
Is
with.
that my thought on it?
Yeah,
And then we'll see.
Yeah.
if they
I don't
come
think
back
there'd be
with
a
it.
problem, to be honest.
There might not
I
be,
know.
no.
except for money.
I think, well, you'll notice in the schedule that we laid out too, that we did include a neighborhood meeting.
Yeah.
Because we'll want to
Right.
talk, because this project's gonna affect, you know, your downtown business area.
Yeah.
And we'll want to make sure that everyone understands what's going to be happening, when it's going to be happening, how it will affect customers being able to get to their business, and those types of things. But certainly, it may be worth having one-on-one in conversations with those individual affected property owners in advance, and talk to them about, just what you mentioned, the opportunity to take the ball and maybe do a little bit more the improvements in their internal buildings.
There's a manhole down at Forest and Second, right there. There's, part of it has been washed away numerous times, right next to the manhole itself. Is that, Wayne, is that city or is that?
It's the stormwater manhole.
What's that?
That's a stormwater manhole, right in front of the VFW.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
Code is city.
but I
city.
mean, it's
But it's not
corroding,
sanitary.
But yeah,
the blacktop is going away. I know somebody's been filling it.
we've been filling it, but it stays rolling. So it's kind
That's-
of, it's kind of like the potholes out here in the intersection too, it's state
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yes.
I call them on it, and then sometimes they fix it, sometimes they don't. We had
Construct-
some mix in the truck, and we threw it in there last time.
Construction that says May of 19, you know, we're gonna have to look at, there are some festivities that go on in the city. We got, you know, parades and that.
Yep.
That's something that's gonna have to be worked out too.
Yeah, and we'll want to make sure that we recognize any of those in the detailed specifications, and we have the project schedule accordingly. Getting back to the assessment, just to kind of close that discussion, you obviously, you have the assessment policy. It is really though more set up, or was set up more in line when you're doing your reconstruction projects. And you think about First Street, which we had a couple years ago. Well, there was one where you had wholesale work, you were already digging up the whole street, and you had multiple sewer services, multiple water services. That's the type of thing where it's, you know, it makes sense for you to pursue the assessments. This project where 95% of the project is not accessible, and just that very small percentage is. As the administrator indicated, it's just, the cash flow doesn't work. It's actually cost negative for the city to utilize the assessment policy for that type of project. And nothing binds you in the policy to using that. Obviously, you have the authority to apply the policy when it makes sense for the city, and to not apply the policy when it doesn't make sense. So I think that would be the recommendation, but we'll want clarification if you choose to move ahead with the project as to whether or not you're using the 429 process. So just to wrap up, in terms of schedule, if you're not going to use the assessment policy and you're just going to fund the project, then you could actually, if you agree with the recommendation, you could authorize preparation of the plans and specification tonight, and we'd get started working on those detailed construction plan specification. The estimated cost for us to put together those plans and specifications is about $27,000, and we'd get those ready and bring them back to you. We anticipate sometime near the end of the winter, like probably at the February or March meeting. Then we would go out for advertisements for bids, get a contractor on board, and we'd be ready to do the work next summer when the weather allows. So probably start the work as Councilman Beranke indicated in May or June, and it should be a pretty quick project. The biggest thing is probably going to be the coordination with MnDOT, when we dig our holes and how we dig our holes, and so it'll probably take us just a
That
bit of time to work through that.
With the pollution people wanting us to hurry up and get it done, and MnDOT saying, not so quick.
So, on the other hand, if you did want to use the assessment policy, we'd have to step back tonight and you'd have to adopt a resolution that would officially order us to prepare a formal feasibility report. And we'd have to bring that report back to you, and then at that time you'd have to receive the report and then schedule a public hearing. So it would add a few months into this project schedule to go that route. But again, staff doesn't see any benefit going that way. So with that, I'll stop and entertain any questions you have regarding the project.
You mentioned twice the amount of inflow from different services, and they would be closed off with this.
Correct, and thank you for pointing that out.
Do we have any problems with, as we did on First, with something being overlooked, so we close off a service or fail to put in a service that is necessary?
No, they have the ability to I mean, from the video, we can tell.
I mean, is there any way you close it off, now it turns out it's going to be used or is being used, how do you go in and
They can
open that up?
they can go in just with like a keyhole saw, and from internally in the pipe, they can cut a hole in the liner to access a new service connection.
Okay.
So
And
all the
then-
existing ones, that's what they'll do with all the existing ones. The liner is solid when it goes through, and then they'll come back in with their robotic camera with a saw attachment on it, and they'll cut out the liner at each one of the connections to
Okay,
reestablish the flows. And then actually they'll then put a chemical sealant around where the pipe coming in connects to the liner so that it prevents any groundwater from sneaking in through that joint.
all right, nice.
Yep.
Now, you said that they were not able to get all the way down the lane. Why couldn't they go from the other end? So that you could get 515 feet in from one end, 515 from the other, and that covers the whole lane.
You could.
Okay, it's just moving the equipment
Mm-hmm.
and adding cost.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, if I was to design this line now, I would have designed another manhole between these two manholes. I mean, typical,
Mm-hmm.
the standard industry practice is 400-foot maximum spacing on manholes, just like it is 250-foot roughly maximum spacing on hydrants, and so.
Yeah, okay.
The point is, there's actually only the one line coming into that structure.
On record, yes. Now, yeah, there may have been something else in the past that structure was utilized for, but as of right now, all we can tell is that one line. It's just a simply dead end structure. But you're right, well, then the reduction of the I&I, inflow and infiltration, is a secondary benefit you're gonna get from this project. Obviously, our main goal is to try and bring those mercury concentrations down. But this liner will be watertight. It'll be a continuous liner with no joints, and it'll go from manhole to manhole, so any...
And it eliminates 2 shared laterals,
Correct.
and also makes it easier in the future to...
Yep. Easier for service and maintenance, yep.
Main.
So, yeah, a lot of benefits out of this project.
What are we doing for money?
Well, this would just come out of the sanitary sewer enterprise fund. You know, there's probably $950,000 in reserve in that fund right now approximately. So as far as if we would look at any other kind of financing for this, I mean, that would come, I would start working on that if we move ahead with this now. So,
Well,
you know, we could just probably pay the whole thing out of reserve, but I am gonna look at some other options, you know, as far as financing goes with rural water, and possibly the MMUA has another one that can be used for other general utility things, and I'll probably talk to our financial advisor about it. It's so small that it's kind of like too small to do a regular bond, GO type bond that you would do for a street project, but it's bigger than, you know, normally we like build into our budget. So it would, so I mean, it can be covered either out of reserve or, and this is just the first step in it, you know, so the 20-some thousand is not that's not an issue.
well, this is part of that project for 2020. That we have to
It is.
meet anyway, so.
Yeah, it's part of the mercury thing with the
Yeah.
PCA that we have
We got
to
2
do
years.
additional steps. Because the alternative, treating it at the plant is gonna be not good, so unfortunately, we were hoping maybe we wouldn't have to do this, but I knew that the odds were probably that we would end up doing it in this area, because this seems to be where the concentrations are being monitored when we're doing, you know, when we're monitoring for mercury. We test it all over town, and this is the area that,
The fact that
so.
each time that line was jetted, the level would go up for a while and then drop back down, which would indicate that you're stirring up sediment in that area that we're talking about. So another thing that indicates, if it's not all of the problem, it's a significant part of the problem, and with a lot of ancillary benefits.
Yeah, keep in mind, your limits, your readings aren't all that high too, so you don't need to get a lot of reduction to get below the limits.
To, at least to the
To get
limits that they're
consistent.
proposing now.
Correct. Yeah. We just need to...
We kind of know that that's likely to change in the future.
Well, that'll also help eliminate 2 of the, or update 2 services.
Yep, that's what
Coming in on that.
I hate those
with the
shared
mercury end of
laterals,
it,
they are nothing but problems.
I kind of see it as something that, hate to spend the money for our liner, but I think we're, in the long run, it's paying for itself. And it's correcting something that we're gonna have coming forward 2 years from now.
Well, and every gallon of water that it keeps out of your plant, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a cost associated with treating every gallon of water, so every gallon that it reduces for the I&I also,
Yeah.
over time, will pay off.
Was there, when you did the camera work, was there a lot of areas you thought there could be I&I that could be contributing to that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, most of the services had some indication that there was some kind of water leaking through them.
Well, you can see some of the pictures that you got,
Yeah.
quite obvious. You pointed them
I'm
out.
sure they thought they were getting ahead of the game by adding all those extra services that aren't being used, but they actually,
Well, and at the time the pipe was installed, I mean, it was the state-of-the-art pipe. I mean, that was the best piping system there was. So, but that line is, I'm not even sure how old that line is. It could be 100 years old or more.
oh no. I put in that pipe, so I was just,
Well, that clay pipe will last a long time if it's
Yeah.
bedded properly and doesn't get disturbed. And except the pipe is in good structural condition, so this liner will,
Yeah.
I mean, it could last another 100 years with this liner once it gets in there.
Any further questions or a motion or
like to make a motion that we go ahead with, what was proposed.
There you go.
And that's.
Yes, uh-huh.
Say with the proposed improvements per the
For you to get started.
engineer's recommendation in the letter dated.
And
November 8th.
specifically, are you talking to not pursue assessment?
Yes, I was going to ask.
I was
what
sure you
we-
were, but we have to get that on the,
Okay, let's not pursue assessments.
so you have made the motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So Holly, just say that we're not gonna utilize chapter 429 process for special assessments in that motion. I can look it up tomorrow.
Thank you, Council. We'll get started on those plans and specs.
Thank you. So, we move on to another knotty issue under legal. Resolution to allow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Allow Festival Farms a lot split, resolution 2018-17. We all read and digested this complex issue.
So Festival Farms is proposing to split, which is a parcel that you could say was split to begin with, but you got on the, up there, you can see A and B, those are both the same PID number, same parcel, so they want to split it off and sell part B to Traxler. And then part A, I don't know if they immediately want to sell that or, 'cause I know they wanted to try to sell their land holdings in that area. So, but this would be to, basically would create parcel A, I guess, would that keep the same PID number, Scott? Or would they assign a new?
No, we have to keep assigning new ones to both parcels.
I think they do both typically, yeah.
So anyway, we create two new parcels. 12.86 parcel would be parcel B, that would be, there's a purchase agreement to sell that to Traxler, and then the remaining parcel would be,
Possibly someplace down the road, they might want to combine A with
yeah.
some of their other holdings there, but it's quite a patchwork, and A has no road access, so it's not as attractive a development area.
So parcel, the second parcel's 11 acres. Scott, is that an issue if there's no access?
You know, there's an argument it is, but the reality is it's already split. That's what's so great
Right.
about this already.
Yeah,
They already
it already
exist.
was an island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't they put that little no man's land between A and B? Why didn't they combine them
Good
together?
question.
You know, because future down the road,
That's probably the old river.
The railroad
The railroad.
is right here,
Right abed with
and the city probably bought
road
this
bed right of way. rather.
from whoever owned the house.
And the other section would
20 years
probably be
ago.
another parcel.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that there may be a time when they might want to do a lot combination.
it'd be a lot easier to do it now. You know,
Yeah.
Would it?
Well,
Not knowing what the total end game is here, and this is really unique because it was one parcel ID, but it was really already split. And what they're trying to do is to take it, and that's why when Mark asked the exact correct question, well, are we creating an island parcel here? Well, no, it already exists. I mean, it's there, but in reality, what it's allowing is that the parcel B can be sold. That's what's happening. Yes, better practices, and even pursuant to our code on subdivisions, we would say it should be combined. And that may be a conversation Mark can have, but the reality is both A and B already exist. They're there, they're already split. I don't know why, I don't know how that ever came forward that way, but that's what exists right now. This simply creates two parcels from the same two parcels with different PID numbers, so they can sell. So it is a little bit unique. It's not your normal thing. But yeah, I think, Mark, you can certainly look at that with the owners and say, what makes logical sense to combine to get something that would put you in a position of access? And it does make sense from a planning standpoint. But it's not necessary, it didn't exist already.
And the railroad piece is owned by Festo.
Yeah.
It's just a different parcel.
Yep.
So they're the same owners. And this whole thing here, this split was triggered many years ago when the railroad
Absolutely.
bought this. And then at some point, I assume the city must have bought this piece here where the lagoon is.
Right. Right.
Many years ago. And then that's probably, what split. And then whoever owned it retained this. But yeah, it all got, anywhere you see the railroad, those parcels are really goofy
Right.
sometimes, and a lot of times. They're all different shapes and configurations. So I don't think there's anything unusual.
No, not for what occurred because of the rail line coming through.
Yeah, and the fact that Festo owns that rail right away there now, it really doesn't cause an issue having A because it's the same owner.
Yeah.
But at some point, yeah, they probably should combine them. Yes.
Well, like Fred said, they're about right-of-way, driveway from A is landlocked. Basically, is there ever gonna be a future where somebody's gonna come back on B saying we have to,
Because there wasn't
There never
access
was one, so.
through that either.
yeah, I don't
that's
think
what I'm
so.
wondering.
It's, well, they never were conjoined,
Well, yeah, I can see that, I'm quite obvious of that, but
so.
I'm just saying if somebody in the future wants that piece, does B have to give
Well, you
to
get into this
acquire a
analysis.
right-of-way? Because legally, you got to have a right-of-way to your own
You
property.
do statutorily both, either via a right-of-way or a cartway. Parcel A has the ability to pay for gaining access
Okay.
from anybody else that can go across.
Okay.
There is a statutory process to go through to do that. So it is landlocked, it already existed that way, but it'll be no different today or tomorrow once you approve this, in all honesty.
It's
And
still
that's what-
landlocked.
It is, that's what's unique about this. You're
This
not really-
action doesn't change that.
No, it doesn't at all.
Okay,
And
that's
it's,
what I
and it's
want.
not our role to be legal advisors either to the owners of the property now or the purchaser at the time.
No, and I, and Mark asked the right question, and that's why I say, no, I don't think it's the city's position to say, we don't want to approve this. We certainly could, because of that landlocked situation, because it already exists. They already have the right statutorily to get access to it, so really what you're approving tonight does not change anything from what was there tonight versus tomorrow morning.
Okay.
In which case, I put up the motion that we approve resolution number 2018-17, granting approval of a lot split for Festal Farms.
Second? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution passes. Then we move on to item number 10 on the agenda, old business. This is something that came up last month, resolution 2018-15, opposing sale of strong beer, spirits and wine in grocery and convenience stores. We basically approved this concept at our last meeting. Now we have the new language. We're looking at a resolution that had been passed by another city, and yes, let's do that. Now we've got our language in here. And I would move that we approve that resolution 2018-15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Good. Don't need to make it easier for kids to go and get things that they should not have.
My kid did that for me.
No, don't tell family secrets in open meeting. So, we move on then to new business. Resolution 2018-16, resolution adopting assessment for delinquent utility bills. This is one of those every year, end of the year things, nothing new, just a different list of parcels involved. Motion to approve resolution 2018-16.
So moved.
Second.
John? He said second a little bit quicker. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. And another similar yearly housekeeping thing here, item B, the 2019 proposed agreement for continuation of our city-county joint powers agreement for state building code administration. Motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Resolution 2018-18, designating the city of Kenyon as a Purple Heart City.
We've been wounded in battle?
No, it means that some of our citizens have been.
Okay.
Mr. McDonald's here to address this issue.
There's a veterans organization called Military Order of Purple Heart. Members are made of solely recipients of the Purple Heart. What their goal is here is making communities aware of our Purple Heart recipients. Last Tuesday, we were down to the Goodhue County Commissioner's Board. They adopted a resolution of Goodhue County being a Purple Heart County. And what we're proposing here with the city, that this would lend support to, pass this to the Purple Heart recipients and the Veterans Organization. Much the same as Wounded Warriors, VFW, Legion, whatever you have. So our Kenyon community is very rich with veterans, we all know that, and there's many of them that did receive the Purple Heart in the past, and hopefully not in the present and the future. But
No, they said that 100 years ago and then
you
they
got that right, Mike. You got that right. So this is what I would like to see. Redmond has adopted it, and I think I'd like to see Kenyon get a second community in the town, the county to adopt this. What will then happen, they've got the street signs, they're very beautiful sign, that this is a Purple Heart community into the entrances of our city. So it'll be in support of another veterans organization.
There are numerous ones here in Kenyon that are Purple Heart recipients. As a matter of fact, Mac McDonald is also Purple Heart. So I think this is something we should go forward with and get it done.
And are you making that in the form of a motion to approve this resolution?
I will. Yeah, I'll make
I
that
will-
resolution.
And I will second that.
Okay.
Call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mac.
Thank you, guys.
And next would be item D, review of the 2019 E resolution, another one of our end of every year situations to
So,
renew or increase various fees.
I would like to, I guess, lay this over to December. There's a couple things in here. One of them dealing with the cost of minor lots split. I think we need to increase that a little bit. But I guess I would like to go back through it, and I don't think there's a lot of things I want to change in there, but there's a couple things that in the last couple of weeks I've thought about, or I mean, the last couple of days I've thought about, maybe we need to look at. So I don't think we have to pass this, you know, at the November meeting, but we should, you know, have it adopted at the December meeting for sure, because it goes into effect then for 2018. So that's, I would just ask you to table if that's, or something.
So what other changes have been made in here? I didn't really go through.
I don't think there's been any, to be honest with you. And that's one of the things I want to go back through, because we talked about a couple other charges that they're quite minor in nature, but I think we need to look at, so. But I just talked to Scott tonight about the minor subdivision charge, so I'd like to look at that and see what, you know, we pay in legal. I know these vary, some of them are, most of the time they're pretty straightforward, but I'd just like to take a look at that. I think I'd suggest, I know just without looking at it, that should maybe go to about $250, because I do think we have more than $150 normally in, you know, cost, and the applicants pay the recording fees, so that's, you know, that's listed in there, so we don't, that's not something we're involved with. But I think overall, I wouldn't have a lot of changes to items, I mean, to the fees.
So do you need a motion to table, or just say, oh, let's table that?
I don't know. Mr. City
Either way
Attorney.
works. You want to be absolutely correct under Robert's rules, sure.
Okay, I make a motion that we table that until next month.
And I'll second that. Add that you need to change the dates on here, because you have this as resolution 2018-01
Yeah, it's supposed to be 2019.
and effective on or after January 1st, 2018. So we have a motion, and did we get a second?
Yes, you seconded it.
Oh, yes, I did. I couldn't remember if I did or not. In that case, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
See how good my memory is? It's just short. So, then, the important part of the evening is for some of us, a couple of individuals,
Yes.
canvassing the 2018 election returns and declare the results. Mark?
Okay, so, the election was held a week ago, last Tuesday, and we had a very, very strong turnout, a lot of young people, so it was encouraging to see that. A lot of new registrants, it was very busy, I'll say that. Anyway, so officially for mayor, Mike got 535 votes, Carla Bauer got 260, and there was 9 write-ins. And for city council, Councilman Hickey got 685 votes, and the other seat was open. There was 176 write-ins, and Dan Retzigal received the most write-in votes, 36. So that's the scoop. Council just needs to adopt.
And might I add, after spending the weekend mulling it over, he did call me last night and agreed to take it on, so good job. Glad to see you. Speech? Not yet. He's got plenty of time. He's got 4 years working his way up to a good one.
So do we have to make a motion or accept that?
Yes. Make a motion to accept their election results or canvass or whatever.
I'll make that a motion. We accept the election results.
Second.
We have a second? Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And update on Hiawatha Land Transit, bus service.
Yeah, I'm on the Hiawatha Land Advisory Committee, Hiawatha Land Transit Advisory Committee, so I just wanted to share, we had a meeting last Thursday. So I got a lot of information. Just an update on the 2018, operations, and they gave us a really good breakdown, very specific spreadsheet of comparative information from 2017 to 2018, but the numbers for Kenyon are good. They're going up. They've increased from 2017, and the 2018 numbers are only through the end of June. But if you take that out through 12 months, we're going to have a good increase in ridership and, number of, riders, and it's got a good breakdown of the types of riders: disabled, elderly, adult, student, children, etc., and then the total. So you can see comparatively from, last year, the number of passengers has increased very significantly. So I think it's good. Anyway, in the city, Kenyon wanted me to go, and all the cities are involved in it, pay a portion of when the buses are replaced. So, we have a financial stake in this operation, but I think they're doing a good job with it. So, I don't know if there's any other questions on any of it, but it was just more of an update. I wanted to talk about it because it's been a while since we've talked about this, and since I think maybe they come around once a year and do an update, I guess, but I just thought it would be good to kind of bring everybody up to speed on it.
They have done so in the past.
Yeah, but it's been quite a while, so.
I'm certainly sure to see the results here, the usage going up. This is something that there have been times in the past that if a service like this existed, I would have utilized it. And frankly, looking down the road, not too many years, I see a time coming when I might need to use it again. So I'm sure there's probably, hopefully, there's going to come a time when I decide, no, I shouldn't really be driving anymore. I better let someone else do it. It's kind of a sad point to reach, but then again, it's good if you survive to reach that point. So, then, no action to be taken there. Next item is Resolution 2018-19, authorizing application for MnDOT Landscape Partnership Program. Wayne, you have some information for us on that?
Well, I've been working on this Mulgret Hill Prairie project, and through looking around trying to find assistance for helping cover some of the costs and whatnot, seeing how it is in the state right away, MDOT got a program, this partnership program, well, that will pay for like the seeds and herbicides for the prep work. So it's just a technicality, it's just a formal, you have to formally pass them to be a member of that group. So you can receive funding for help. So then they would, we send them a letter asking to be a member of the program. They accept it, and then we meet up again with the state architect guy, and comes up with an idea or proposed plan for the hillside. And we can follow through and get prairie installed on that hillside.
Is the state going to be going the same direction we were going